Welcome to the Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore. It is Sunday, June the 14th, 2020.
How many more examples will we need? The cameras aren't doing it. Y'all filming it isn't doing it. Covering it isn't doing it. People protesting isn't doing it. What is it going to take? How many more examples are we going to get? I actually thought that we were going to get over all this. I thought this was finally going to start ending with all these changes. We saw the police chief resign today. We don't have the exact reasons why, but I can theorize that maybe it's because she even realized, what more can I do training-wise? They know they shouldn't have done that. Do we need to start over and rehire all the officers to retrain them? What other options do we have? The problem is that they've been given leeway to use lethal force for all too often and too long. And this is what we're left with. And as we are just getting this case, the details are just getting more horrific. Because there were multiple witnesses out there. We talked to some witnesses today who said that the officers went and put on plastic gloves and picked up their shell casings after they killed him, before rendering aid. We counted 2 minutes and 16 seconds before they even checked his pulse. And people wonder why everyone's bad. Just watch the video as he lays there dying. The officers stand around. One kicks him and flips him over. And then the witnesses tell us that, which we can't see on camera, but they filmed it. They went and picked up the shell casings. I wonder why. So that all of you can't know how far away he was when they shot? So that you can't find their positions when they use that weapon? But they appear to be caring more about covering their tracks than providing aid. Aid that could have saved his life.
That was Chris Stewart on Saturday. He is the attorney for the family of Rayshard Brooks. He was speaking yesterday in Atlanta, Georgia. Rayshard Brooks was murdered just hours before that press conference. In the very late night of Friday, June the 12th, 2020, in Atlanta, Georgia, Rayshard Brooks was in his car in a Wendy's restaurant drive-thru just off the highway in Atlanta. He fell asleep in his car. Somebody at Wendy's or elsewhere thought it a good idea to call the police. Since Rayshard Brooks's car had been blocking the path of other cars to go through the drive-thru. And for reasons known only to the person who made that phone call to police, they thought it was not the best thing to just simply knock on the window of that car, of the car that belonged to Rayshard Brooks. Nobody thought it wise to honk their car to awaken Rayshard Brooks. The police was the first thing that people thought of. So the police come, 2 officers, both white males. Turns out one had been on the force since 2018. The other had been on the force since 2013. The officers caught up with Mr. Brooks, had a chat with him. In fact, they had spent over an hour and a half with him. The first 23 or 24 minutes were cordial, ordinary conversation. Then around minute 25, the officers decided to ask for him to have a breathalyzer test. Soon after that test was administered, according to the dashcam video that MSNBC's news reporter Blaine Alexander had looked at. She had 4 different videotapes, two dash cam and 2 body cam, one from each officer. Only one of the dash cam videos was released to air on TV, which is very interesting indeed. That tells you a lot. As of this episode, the other 3 video recordings that Blaine Alexander of MSNBC has in her possession and has watched have not been aired yet on television, which is really revealing to me. The only other video we've seen is a video from Wendy's and a video shot by someone who put her video on Facebook, which shows the struggle, and I'll get to that in a few moments. But when that breathalyzer test was administered around the 25th or 26th minute, and the officers had determined that, well, we're going to have to place you under arrest. And they began to do that. And then Rayshard Brooks, a black man in America, struggled and broke free and wrestled with the cops, throwing one of them to the ground, wrestling it over on top of him, taking the taser of one of the 2 cops. Breaking free, punching one of the cops to get away from him, and pulling away from the other cop who was on the ground. And with the taser that he had stolen, he had taken from one of the 2 cops, he ran. One of the cops took off after him. He already had his own taser out and tried to, in fact, tried to tase without any success in terms of injuring the young man, Rayshard Brooks. Chased after Brooks in full pursuit of Mr. Brooks. And as he ran, he was literally about 10 feet or less behind Rayshard Brooks was this cop, Garrett Rolfe. Garrett Rolfe can be seen on the Wendy's video reaching for his gun even before Rayshard Brooks turns around to point a taser at him. CNN played the video, must have been about 500 times in the space of 7 or 8 hours. Garrett Rolfe clearly reaches for his gun before the man he is chasing even turns around to point a taser at him. And even so, taser or no taser, there was no need to shoot a man who's running away from you. That's what Garrett Rolfe did. Cowardly, cold-bloodedly, murderously. He didn't shoot him once in the back, which is horrible enough and cowardly enough and murderous enough. He shot him at least 3 times. That according to one of the dash cam videos that was aired, the only one that was aired on MSNBC. You can clearly hear at least 3 gunshots. Rayshard Brooks falls to the concrete. He is still actually alive from the looks of the Wendy's camera. One of the officers, as the attorney Chris Stewart said, and you heard it, kicks at Rayshard Brooks, kicks him. You actually see the motion of this officer kicking him while he's on the ground. Now, we do not see these cops put on rubber gloves or plastic gloves and pick up the shell casings from the bullets that were fired. We didn't see that on the videos that we've been shown so far. But one thing you will see clearly, if you even want to watch this grotesque video, is that there are at least 4 vehicles that are in the drive-through line waiting to get to the area where you order your food. And they were all stopped there. They all had a front row seat to the murder of Rayshard Brooks. And certainly they had their cell phone cameras rolling. There were a number of people who witnessed this, even beyond those sitting in the Wendy's drive-thru. Chris Stewart says in other portions of audio that I have not played from that press conference from yesterday that he had spoken to numerous witnesses who had told him that these cops did not attend to Rayshard Brooks, who was lying there dying on the concrete in the dead of night. Instead, they were picking up shell casings. While a human being lay dying in the street. It turns out for 2 minutes and 16 seconds, 2 minutes and 16 seconds, nothing had been done in terms of checking on the health and well-being of 27-year-old Rayshard Brooks. 2 minutes and 16 seconds passed by before they even checked his pulse. 2 minutes and 16 seconds is a lifetime. And not only is it a lifetime, it is enough time where the paramedics and ambulance could have been on the scene. And usually it takes between a minute and 2 minutes for a paramedic to arrive, and especially when a police officer calls for one. It would not have taken that long. In the time it took to call an ambulance and to have one arrive, these cops were busy with other priorities. How to clean up a crime scene, how to interfere with a crime scene. This is according to eyewitnesses who have spoken to attorney Chris Stewart. And there is a lot of other video, we are being told, that is out there that has been shot by eyewitnesses who have not come forward, obviously, because they want to protect their identities. So we are going to see more video from this case. We are going to see more video. Garrett Wolfe, or should I say Garrett Rolfe, within a few hours, late last night, early this morning, was fired from the Atlanta Police Department. An officer at the department since 2013. He was fired, and now he needs to be arrested and charged with murder. First or second degree murder, no worse than second degree, but certainly seems like a first degree case. I know that intent needs to be proved. But isn't shooting someone in the back intent enough? If you've been on the police force for roughly 7 years, why would you need to shoot a man who is running away from you? By its very definition, it is cowardly and it is murder, at the very least. These two officers, according to dashcam video that Blaine Alexander of MSNBC had been looking at, as she described, had spent a good hour and a half with Rayshard Brooks. They surely obtained his license plate. So why didn't they just let him go? He was running. He was never going to get back to his car. And he was never going to get very far. So why end his life? The answer is that you murdered him. There was no need to end his life. There was no need to shoot at him as he was running from you. You are less than 10 feet behind him. And you crash into a red parked car. You drop your taser and then shoot him 3 times. At least in the back, at least 3 times. You shouldn't have shot him at all. You let him go. So he resisted arrest. That does not mean you murder him. You do not kill someone who resists arrest. And a taser is not a deadly weapon. And he's running away from you with a taser. Why didn't you call for backup? Why was the first thing in your mind killing him, when you could have done 50 other things before you went to ending his life? There was no reason to do that. No reason whatsoever. You were mad. You were angry, weren't you? You were angry that a drunk black man wrestled you to the ground, took your taser, punched you in your face, humiliated you and your partner, and ran away with your taser, leaving one cop on the ground, you were angry. And to redeem yourself from the humiliation and the ass kicking that you got from a drunk black man, you thought that you could get your rocks off and unleash your anger at being humiliated and beaten. One man overpowering two white cops. And you thought that you would just get some kind of sick revenge by murdering him. How dare you take that taser? Now take 3 of these bullets. That's what you thought. And you also thought that you were going to get away with it. And after all, who could blame you for thinking that? Because you've always got away with it. You've always killed black people and maybe felt like asking some questions 5 years afterwards, if at all. You never even got arrested most of the time. Heck, you haven't been arrested yet as of the time I'm recording this. And your partner is on administrative leave. Is he getting paid? Are you getting your pension? You had no right. You had no right to take the life of young Rayshard Brooks. Rayshard Brooks was going to be spending some time with his daughter on her 8th birthday, because that's what Saturday was. The plan was for Rayshard to spend time taking his daughter out for her birthday. Just yesterday. Now he will never, ever have that chance. Welcome back. Garrett Rolfe must be arrested, and he must be arrested immediately. If it is true that there is video showing that police were picking up bullet casings, shell casings, and that they did this before attending to the lifeless body of Rayshard Brooks, then each of those police officers should be charged with aiding and abetting murder and cover-up and conspiracy to cover up a crime of murder, which means any and all officers who engaged in such conduct would be facing those charges and should be summarily arrested. Now, the cop that was put on administrative leave is obviously still a member of the Atlanta Police Department. If there is video showing that he participated in covering this up, he certainly should be charged. if there is video showing that he kicked the body of Rayshard Brooks, and it looks like it was he who did in the Wendy's video, from that surveillance camera, then he's in deep trouble as well. And he can't be on any kind of administrative leave. This has been going on in Atlanta for many decades. The police murdering black people in Atlanta, in America, period, is nothing new. The mayor of Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms, on Saturday at a press conference, certainly a statement that she made it very clear that the officer had to go. She called for the officer to be fired. And within 9 hours of her calling for that, he was gone. Garrett Rolfe was terminated, as I said. The police chief of Atlanta, Erica Shields, stepped down, effective immediately, resigning from her post as the police chief of Atlanta, PD. An interim was named until they were able to find a replacement from a nationwide search. Now, here's the first thing that's wrong, is that Erica Shields stepped down from her role as police chief of the Atlanta Police Department, yet is still going to be working inside the department in another to be determined capacity. Why? This smells a lot like appeasement. This smells a lot like trying to pacify the understandably outraged community. Oh, that's what this smells like. And the stench is strong. I don't care how many police chiefs you fire, how many resign, how many cops you fire. What you have to fire is the system in which all of this goes on, all of these murders of black people. The system has to go. The system has to be fired, ended. It is the whole culture that has to go. The militarization of police, the police unions have to have their power diluted. The police cannot afford to keep doing this. We can't afford it. Black Lives Matter. This is going to be very, very ugly. If there is no justice in this case, and if there are no arrests as part of that justice and convictions, this country will not last too long. We've had George Floyd. Before him, Breonna Taylor. Not to mention Ahmaud Arbery. It has been more than 3 months, and Breonna Taylor's killers the 3 killer cops that shot her 8 times while she slept in her bed, still have not been arrested to this day. One of the killers of George Floyd is out on bail. Thomas Lane. He's been a free man for about 4 days now. 3 or 4 days. The system has to be the thing that is fired. And how do you do that? You put in serious laws. And I'm not talking about the laws that Governor Cuomo put in for New York. You put in laws that says if a police officer shoots someone in the back, shoots somebody for no reason, that's a minimum of 25 years behind bars. You have to start taking the power away from police. For some people, that's defunding them. Defunding them means several different things. One of those things is simply taking money out of the budget of the police department and reducing that budget and allocating some of the money that you would spend on police and shifting it to something like education, for example, or housing. Defunding the police does not mean, certainly doesn't necessarily mean, take every last penny from the budget for police. That is not what it really means, actually. Abolishing the police is about eradicating the system of policing you presently have and turn into a community-based, person-to-person type of policing where you would get to know the people in your neighborhood. Whereas in some Scandinavian countries, you have to study the law for 2 years, study weapons for 2 years before you even get to fire one while you're on the force. In some cities, that means you have to, and that's happening here in America, in some cities, you have to live in the community that you are policing. That means living there maybe 1 or 2 years before you even start policing there. That means visiting the neighborhood. That means speaking to people in the neighborhood. That means cultivating relationships with people in the neighborhood. Camden, New Jersey was able to succeed in a completely different modeling of policing. They got rid of the system that was not working for them in the early 2000s. Their crime rate went through the roof before that. And after getting a brand new police force that dealt with community-based policing and pulled back from aggression, guess what happened in Camden, New Jersey? The crime rate went way down. Way down. There's no reason why that can't be the model for every single city in America. Every town, every hamlet, every village. If it worked in Camden, New Jersey, there's no reason why it cannot work everywhere else in the United States of America. The police unions have far too much power in this country. And they are the ones who are really the muscle behind everything. They are the ones that the mayors and the governors are the most afraid of. They wield power. They have way too much of it. They need to be brought to heel. Their power needs to be diluted. a culture has to change. And until you eradicate a system where the vast majority of people in it believe that black life does not count for anything, and believes that if they are a police officer, they can shoot you dead in the comfort of knowing that they are probably not going to get arrested for it. That is what usually happens when police murder black people. Conviction? A trial? Forget those two things happening. They don't even get to the stage of a trial. Most of these things don't even get to people being indicted. Just ask Michael Brown's family about that. If police knew that they were going to be arrested, if police knew that they were not going to have this qualified immunity, which must be eliminated, it's something that gives police so much power and leverage. If police knew beforehand that they would not have 48 hours to make up a story, to lie, so that they could present a lying, flimsy-ass case before the world, like one of these cops is doing right now, almost certainly. The one who's on administrative leave certainly is. Then police would straighten up and fly right. Until police officers, white, Asian, black, Latinx, respect black lives, and until the system in which they operate respects black lives, we are going to have more Breonna Taylors, more George Floyds, and more Rayshard Brookses. That is a simple fact. That is a simple fact. No more of these killings. No more of these killings. The United States of America has had enough of these murders of black people. Too many funerals. Too many funerals. And no one in these police departments is being held accountable. Nobody. It took almost a week to arrest Derek Chauvin in Minneapolis. That name already sounds old, and it's only been 2.5 weeks, almost 3, since he and 3 other cops executed George Floyd. George Floyd's brother, Philonis, testified this past Wednesday before Congress. And in Atlanta, that testimony fell on deaf ears. People who were so shocked. Well, we've been marching. Oh my goodness. After George Floyd, how could they? This happens every day. People have been telling you, including me, that George Floyd's and Breonna Taylor's go on daily in this country, with or without videos of it happening. This is not about where the cameras are or are not. This is about a system. And the system is doing its work. The system is not broken. It's working just fine for those who control it. But it is not working for us. These killings must end. And for those in the news media, the corporate news media, who made a big show of telling everybody that there was such rapid change and that there's a change in the wind and there's a shift. Well, you were only kind of half right about that. There's certainly a change in the sense that you have a lot more white people joining in these movements in sustained, real ways and are educating fellow white people to get involved. That is the change that you're seeing. You're seeing a much larger, much more diverse movement happening. Black, white, Latinx, Asian, Native American, gay, straight. That is the change that you're seeing, and you're seeing some companies respond to it, not just with statements, but with actions in some cases. Where the media got this all wrong was in the notion that these killings would somehow stop, that George Floyd's execution would be the very last time we would be having these kinds of events, these murders happen at the hands of police in this country, the United States of America. That's where you got it wrong. And it was this rush to self-congratulate, this rush to insist that change had come through all these pundits on these television screens, when the reality was that change had to be still fought for. The reality was that people in the 19th day of protest were far from done. Governor Cuomo on Friday signed some pretty good initiatives and bills. Good start. But that is not enough. Even Cuomo himself was heard to say, well, I just signed this legislation yesterday. What is the sense of continuing to protest? Well, there's lots of sense in doing it. You can't do things that are politically expedient when you have black bodies continuing to fall at the hands of police officers all over America. Do not perform for us. What we will ultimately have to do, as well as march, is call our local representatives. Call them. Get their phone numbers. Do a search for them. Download from either Android or Apple, the 5 Calls app. That's the number 5 and then the word CALLS. Download that app to your phone. Find out who your congressional representatives are, your local representative. Search for them online if you can't download that app. Find out what your district is. Type in your zip code. Find out what your congressional district is. And make sure you call that congressperson's office, that local assembly person's office, and tell them how you feel about these murders of black people, brown people, native people by police. Tell them how you feel and tell them, look, you want them to speak up and do something to end this violence. Make sure you organize if you are so inclined to want to run for office and do so under the banner of ending these killings. By all means, run for office. Get some donations together. I know these are difficult times. Obviously, we are still in a pandemic, don't forget. And an economy that's actually at depression level. The Republican Great Depression. But there's so many things we can do. If you don't want to protest and march because you don't want to risk getting COVID-19, then get on the phone, if you've got a phone. Get on a computer, if you've got a computer, and start dialing and typing. Type letters, type emails to your local political officials, to your mayor. Let her know that you've had enough of these murders. Let him know you've had enough. Write to your governor. Get on social media and tweet them. Tell him in no uncertain terms that you want an end to this. And what kind of legislation are you putting forth? This is an election year also, by the way, in case you didn't know. So you've also got to pledge to vote this November. And not just the person that you want to see in the White House, but everybody down ballot. You have to vote in every category. And I mean every single one. Every race, I mean. Vote for whomever is a Democrat, quite frankly. Call your assembly person and ask them what they are doing about police unions. What is the agenda there? What's the reality there with police unions? What kind of things can we do to slow their roll, so to speak? We can't afford any more Breonna Taylors. We cannot afford any more. No more George Floyds. No more. No more David McAtees. No more. We can't have this anymore. No more Rayshard Brookses. No more. We are done with this. We are fed up. We are fed up of state-sanctioned murder, whether it is the kind that befell Ahmaud Arbery, and it took 3 months almost for those cops, one of them an ex-cop, and the other his son, to be arrested, and then it took even almost longer for the third person who videoed the damn thing to be arrested. All of these are white guys, by the way. We can't afford this anymore. Whether it is Ahmaud Arbery, whether it is Breonna Taylor, whether it is George Floyd, whether it is Rayshard Brooks, the cost is too high. And something will have to give. Vote this November. And until then, keep agitating for change, for a completely new system, because that, I believe, is what it will take. You can fire all the police chiefs on the planet, but if you haven't addressed and got rid of the system that values black people's lives less than it does white lives, and not equally the same, you are never going to see these killings of black people end. You will never see police get so much as arrested, let alone anything else. We have our work cut out for us. One of the things we do is keep marching. And we have our smartphones. Let's get smart. Let's contact our representatives in our states, from governor all the way down, and make sure that you let them hear your voice. If you want to call Congress, it's 202-225-3121. That's the congressional switchboard. This is an election year. A lot of people are up for office and re-election bids. Make sure they hear your voice. Rayshard Brooks leaves behind 3 daughters and 1 stepson. The family of Rayshard Brooks will be speaking on Monday. Rayshard Brooks, once again, was just 27 years of age. Rest in power, Rayshard. Rest in peace.